The sky above Earth had turned dark, not from clouds, but from the countless alien ships that now filled the sky. The world that once thrived with life, cities, and hope was now a place of ruins and despair. Earth's last remaining defenders were hiding, scared and broken, waiting for the inevitable end. Among the survivors was a young woman named Mira. She had seen the fall of her world, the destruction of her people, and the endless suffering that the aliens had caused. But Mira wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. She lived in one of the last underground cities, far beneath the surface. There, the survivors had managed to keep themselves hidden, keeping their heads low and trying to stay alive. But Mira had a secret. A secret that might change everything. It started with an old story her grandfather used to tell her when she was just a child. He spoke of an ancient artifact, hidden somewhere on Earth, that could defeat the alien invaders. The artifact was rumored to be buried deep beneath the ruins of the old city. No one knew if it was real or just a myth, but Mira believed in it. Her gut told her it was real, and it was the last hope for humanity. The alien forces, led by their ruthless leader HFY, had scoured every inch of the Earth. They thought they had wiped out all humans. But Mira knew they hadn't found the artifact yet. She couldn't let them. If they did, humanity's last hope would be gone. Without wasting time, Mira gathered a small group of survivors. They weren't warriors, but they had the same fire inside them. They weren't going to wait for the aliens to finish what they started. They were going to find the artifact, no matter the cost. The group set off from the underground city at dawn, moving swiftly through the dark, empty streets. The city, once full of life, was now a ghost town. The alien ships hovered above, casting long shadows over the buildings. Mira led the way, her heart pounding with each step. She knew the danger, but she also knew the only chance to save humanity was this. They reached the outskirts of the city by midday. The ruins of the old buildings stretched out in front of them like a battlefield frozen in time. Mira paused for a moment, her eyes scanning the horizon. Something didn't feel right. Then, without warning, a loud explosion ripped through the air. The group scattered, running for cover. Alien drones had spotted them. Mira cursed under her breath. She had to keep moving. She had to find the artifact. The group ducked behind fallen debris. Mira noticed something strange. There, in the distance, was a building that seemed untouched by time. It was an old museum, one that had once displayed the world's greatest treasures. The artifact had to be inside. It had to be. But getting there wouldn't be easy. The alien drones were closing in, and the group had little time. Mira looked around at her companions. They were all afraid, but they were also determined. Together, they could do this. They just had to stay calm and focused. "Stay close," Mira whispered, her voice steady. "We move when I say so." With no time to lose, Mira led them toward the museum. The alien drones were getting closer, their robotic eyes scanning the area. Mira could hear their humming as they flew overhead. She held her breath, praying they wouldn't spot them. They reached the museum entrance just as the drones began to circle above. Mira pushed open the door. Inside, it was dark, the air thick with dust and the smell of decay. But Mira didn't care. She had to find the artifact. There was no turning back now. The group moved through the museum, carefully checking each room. The place felt abandoned, but Mira knew better. The aliens had likely already searched here. But there was something they had missed. Something hidden from their sight. As Mira and her group explored deeper into the museum, they found a hidden staircase leading down into the basement. The stairs creaked beneath their feet as they descended into the darkness. The air grew colder the further they went, and a strange sense of foreboding filled the space. At the bottom, they found an old, rusty door. Mira stepped forward, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. She pushed the door open, revealing a small chamber. In the center of the room, resting on a stone pedestal, was a glowing object. The artifact. Mira's heart skipped a beat. She had found it. But just as she reached for it, the door slammed shut behind them. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. Mira spun around to see a massive figure standing in the doorway. It was Exorath, the alien leader. He had been waiting for them. "You think you can defeat me?" Sorath's voice was cold and mocking. "You are nothing." Mira's hand tightened around the artifact. She could feel its power pulsing through her fingertips. This was it. The last hope. Without another word, she turned and smashed the artifact against the pedestal. A blinding light filled the room, and the air seemed to crackle with energy. Sorath let out a roar of rage, but it was too late. The light exploded outward, and Mira felt herself being lifted off the ground. The power of the artifact was immense, more than she could have ever imagined. It surged through her, and she knew, deep down, that this was the moment humanity had been waiting for. Sorath screamed in fury as the light engulfed him, and then silence. The war was over. The aliens had been defeated. Mira opened her eyes. The light had faded, and the museum was still. The world outside was quiet, free from the alien threat. Humanity's last hope had been fulfilled. After the fall of Earth, humanity had scattered. The once thriving cities now lay in ruins, and the alien invaders controlled almost every corner of the planet. The skies were dark with the presence of their ships, hovering like silent predators. The alien leader, Exorath, ruled with an iron fist, and it seemed there was no hope left for mankind. But beneath the surface of this dark world, there was a spark. A spark that refused to die. In one of the farthest colonies, on a barren planet known as Varden, lived a young woman named Elora. She was a skilled mechanic, working in a small repair shop. Most of her days were spent fixing broken ships and machines, trying to keep the last of humanity's fleet in working order. She had no interest in the war. She had never fought, and she believed the rebellion was a lost cause. It wasn't until one fateful evening that everything changed. The day started like any other. Alara was working late, her hands covered in grease as she fixed a damaged engine. The sounds of distant explosions echoed across the empty streets, reminders of the alien raids. As she worked, a familiar figure stepped into the workshop, her brother, Kale. Kale was different. He had changed ever since the day their parents were taken by the aliens. His once peaceful demeanor had turned into a quiet determination. He was no longer the brother she knew. He was part of something bigger now, something dangerous. "Alara," Kale said, his voice low. "We need you." She looked up at him, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I've been talking to the Resistance," he said, glancing nervously around the room. "We have a plan. A real plan. If we don't do something now, it'll be too late. The aliens. They're planning something. Something terrible. We can't let them win." Alara shook her head. "Kale, I'm not a fighter. I'm just a mechanic. I can't help with this." Kale stepped closer, his eyes intense. "You don't have to fight. We need someone who can fix our ships, someone who can help us get to the heart of the alien empire. The rebellion needs you, Alara." Alara hesitated. She didn't want to get involved. She didn't want to lose her brother like so many others had. But deep down, she knew he was right. The aliens were only getting stronger, and the Resistance was humanity's last chance. "I'll help," she said quietly. "But we do this my way." The next few days were a blur of planning, preparation, and secret meetings. Alara helped Kale repair the fleet of rebel ships, ensuring they were ready for whatever was to come. As she worked, she began to see the rebellion's strength, the fire in the eyes of the people who refused to bow down to the aliens. It wasn't just about fighting back anymore. It was about reclaiming humanity's future. One evening, as the final touches were being made to their flagship, Alora stood on the ship's deck, looking out at the dark horizon. She knew the time had come. The rebellion was ready to strike. The plan was simple. The rebels would attack a major alien base that controlled the planet's resources. If they could take it down, it would cripple the aliens' power in this sector and send a message to the rest of the galaxy. But there was a problem. The base was heavily guarded, and the alien fleet was massive. One wrong move could mean the end of the rebellion before it even began. As the fleet prepared to leave, Alara couldn't help but feel the weight of the mission on her shoulders. She wasn't a soldier, and she didn't know how to fight. But she had something more valuable than weapons. She had the skills to make their ships work, to keep them alive during the most dangerous battle they would ever face. The fleet set off under the cover of darkness, flying low and fast to avoid detection. Alara sat in the cockpit of their flagship, her hands steady as she worked on the ship's systems, keeping everything running smoothly. The tension was thick in the air, and every member of the crew knew this could be their last mission. As they approached the alien base, the first wave of rebel ships attacked. Explosions lit up the night sky, and Alara could hear the sounds of lasers and gunfire in the distance. The battle had begun. Alara's job was simple: keep the ship flying. But as the battle raged on, things went wrong. The alien defenses were stronger than they had anticipated. A missile struck one of the rebel ships, sending it spiraling toward the ground. Alara's heart raced. They couldn't lose any more ships. She worked faster, using all her skill to keep the flagship intact, guiding it through the chaos of the battle. But just as they were about to breach the alien base's defenses, a powerful energy blast hit their ship, knocking out the main engines. "Hang on!" Alara shouted to the crew. "We're not done yet." With only seconds to spare, Alara took control of the ship's backup systems and steered them into the heart of the base. The rebels followed, launching their final attack. The base's core exploded, sending shockwaves across the planet. The rebellion had won. But the victory came at a cost. Many ships had been destroyed, and many rebels had fallen. Alara stood among the survivors, her heart heavy with the knowledge that the war was far from over. The aliens would come back, and the rebellion would have to keep fighting. But for the first time in a long while, Alara felt something she hadn't in years hoped. The war between humanity and the alien invaders had raged for years. Earth had fallen. The alien forces, led by the ruthless Supreme Commander Xarath, had wiped out cities and devastated humanity's last strongholds. The few remaining survivors lived in constant fear, hiding in the shadows of a world that no longer felt like their own. But there was a whisper, a rumor that could change everything. Deep in the ruins of an old military base, far from the watchful eyes of the alien forces, a secret weapon had been hidden. It was said to be powerful enough to turn the tide of the war, to give humanity a fighting chance. No one knew if it was real, but a small group of rebels had set their sights on finding it. Among the group was Lucas, a former soldier who had lost everything in the war. His family, his friends, his home, all gone in the blink of an eye. The only thing that kept him going was the hope that this weapon could help reclaim Earth from the aliens. He was determined to find it, no matter the cost. The group gathered in an abandoned building on the outskirts of the ruined city. Lucas stood at the front, his mind focused on the mission ahead. His team was small, just 5 people, but they were all driven by the same goal. They had to find the weapon. "We know the weapon is here," Lucas said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We don't have much time before the aliens discover our location. We find it, or humanity has no future." His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their meaning. The others nodded, each one ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead. Together, they set off toward the military base. The journey was dangerous. The alien patrols were everywhere, their ships circling the skies, looking for any sign of life. The rebels moved through the ruins of the city, staying out of sight and relying on the cover of night to stay hidden. Lucas led the way, his eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. Every step felt like a risk, but he knew they had no other choice. After hours of careful movement, it was surrounded by high walls and guarded by alien drones. The rebels crouched in the shadows, watching the drones patrol the perimeter. Lucas knew they had to be quick. The base was their only chance, but getting inside would be a challenge. "There's a guard post up ahead," said Anna, one of the rebels. "We can disable the drones from there." Lucas nodded. "We do this quietly. We don't want to draw attention." They moved swiftly, using the cover of darkness to approach the guard post. Anna, a former engineer, quickly hacked into the security systems, shutting down the drones one by one. The team moved forward, their hearts pounding in their chests, but they stayed focused. They had no room for mistakes. Once inside the base, they split up to search for the weapon. The base was massive, its halls echoing with silence. Lucas's footsteps seemed loud in the empty corridors as they made their way deeper into the facility. They passed by abandoned rooms, broken equipment, and forgotten relics of the past. The weapon had to be here. It had to be. Minutes turned into hours, and still, they hadn't found anything. Lucas's frustration grew. The base was huge, and the weapon was supposed to be hidden in the heart of it. But every room they searched came up empty. Were the rumors just a lie? Anything? Lucas asked, his voice tense. No, Anna replied, shaking her head. Nothing. The team was starting to lose hope. But Lucas refused to give up. He knew they couldn't afford to fail. Then, a soft click echoed through the hall. The sound of a hidden door opening. Did you hear that? Lucas whispered. The others nodded, their eyes wide with surprise. They followed the sound, their feet moving quickly but carefully. The door led to a narrow staircase, descending into the depths of the base. It was unlike any other part of the facility they had seen. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. They reached the bottom of the stairs, where they found a thick metal door. It was locked, but there was a small panel next to it. Anna stepped forward and began working on the panel. Her fingers moved quickly, her mind focused on the task. After a tense moment, the door clicked open. Inside, they found what they had been searching for. The weapon was not a machine, not a bomb or a missile. It was something far more terrifying, a crystal, glowing with an otherworldly light. It hummed with energy, as if alive, and Lucas could feel its power radiating out. This is it, Lucas whispered. This is our chance. But just as they began to celebrate, an alarm blared throughout the base. The aliens had discovered their presence. The countdown had begun. Move now! Lucas shouted. The team grabbed the crystal and ran. The base was no longer safe. The aliens would be here any minute, and they had to get out. They fought their way through the base, the sound of gunfire and explosions filling the air. The crystal was their only hope now. They had to get it back to the rebel forces, or the war would be lost. As they reached the exit, they were met by a squad of alien soldiers. The rebels fought with everything they had, but the aliens were too powerful. Lucas's heart raced as he saw Anna fall, her body struck by a blast. They couldn't stop now. The weapon had to survive. With one last push, they broke through the alien lines and escaped the base, carrying the crystal with them. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of the hidden rebel camp. The weapon was in their hands. But the fight was far from over. Earth had never known peace. For centuries, humans had fought wars, conquered lands, and expanded across the stars. But now, in the year 2115, a new enemy had arrived, one that would change everything. Silent. Invisible. Deadly. The aliens had come, not with warships or armies, but with a weapon that humanity had never seen before, a virus that spread like wildfire, attacking not just the body, but the mind. The world had been brought to its knees. Governments crumbled. Cities fell silent. People stopped speaking, stopped fighting. The virus had taken away their will to resist. It didn't kill outright, but it turned them into mindless drones, doing nothing but waiting for orders that never came. But there was a small group of survivors, people who had been unaffected. They hid in the shadows, careful not to let the aliens know they were still free. They called themselves the Resistance, and they had one goal: to stop the virus and take back the Earth. Among them was Nadia, a former scientist who had lost everything to the virus. Her family, her friends gone. She had watched the world fall apart from the safety of an underground lab, and now she was the one who had to find a cure. The only way to fight back was to understand the virus, to find its source and destroy it. But every step closer to the truth felt like a step into darkness. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" one of her teammates, Marcus, asked as they prepared for another mission. His eyes were full of concern. "The alien presence is stronger than ever." "If we get caught, I'm ready," Nadia interrupted, her voice steady. "We don't have a choice. We have to find the source of the virus before it's too late." Marcus nodded, though he still looked worried. I'll keep you safe. The Resistance's plan was simple: find the alien research facility that had started the virus and destroy it. But nothing was simple in this new world. The facility was hidden deep within the ruins of an old city, guarded by alien drones that scanned for any sign of life. The aliens didn't care about the survivors. They had already won. They only cared about ensuring the virus continued to spread, ensuring that the last pockets of humanity were wiped out. Nadia and Marcus led their team through the deserted streets, their steps echoing in the silence. The city, once bustling with life, now stood as a graveyard. Buildings were crumbling, and the air was thick with dust. Every corner seemed to hide a new danger, and Nadia's senses were on high alert. "We need to be quick," Nadia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The longer we stay out here, the more likely we are to be discovered." They moved swiftly, staying close to the shadows, avoiding the alien patrols that seemed to be everywhere. The facility was only a few miles away, but it might as well have been 1,000. Every moment felt like a lifetime. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the facility. It stood tall, a fortress of steel and glass, glowing faintly under the pale moonlight. Nadia's heart raced. She had seen it in her research, but now, seeing it in person, she felt a deep sense of dread. This was the source of everything: the virus, the mind control, the suffering. If they failed here, there would be no future for humanity. Marcus turned to Nadia. "We're in position." "What now?" "We get inside," Nadia replied. "We find the lab where they're making the virus. We destroy everything." Sounded simple enough, but Nadia knew better. The facility was heavily guarded, and the alien technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. They had to move fast and stay silent. One mistake, and the entire mission would be over. As they approached the entrance, Nadia's hand brushed against the wall. She could feel the hum of alien energy beneath her fingertips. This was no ordinary building. It was a fortress designed to withstand anything. But Nadia wasn't here to be stopped. She crouched beside a small access panel, her mind racing. If she could hack into the security system, they could slip past the guards unnoticed. But the system was complicated, and the aliens would be watching closely. "I'll handle it," Nadia said, her voice calm. "Cover me." The others took their positions, watching for any signs of movement. Nadia plugged into the access panel and began working. Her fingers flew over the screen, bypassing one security lock after another. But then, just as she thought she was in, the panel sparked, and the door slid open with a loud hiss. Nadia froze. "They know we're here. Move!" Marcus shouted. The team rushed into the building, but the moment they stepped inside, they were met by the sound of footsteps. Alien soldiers. The drones had detected them. Nadia's heart pounded as she led the team down the hallway, her mind racing to come up with a plan. They had to get to the lab, to the heart of the facility. As they turned a corner, they saw the lab. But it was guarded by a group of alien soldiers, weapons raised, waiting for them. Nadia's pulse quickened. She knew they had only one chance. There was no time for stealth now. "Cover me!" she shouted. She ran forward, dodging blasts as she sprinted toward the control panel inside the lab. The others followed, but the aliens weren't going down without a fight. The hallway erupted in gunfire, and Nadia heard Marcus shout in pain. She didn't stop. She couldn't. Finally, she reached the control panel. With shaking hands, she hacked into the system, disabling the lab's defenses. The doors slammed shut behind her, trapping the alien soldiers outside. "Now," Nadia said, "destroy everything." The team set explosives on the research equipment, making sure to wipe out every trace of the virus. Just as they finished, an explosion rocked the facility, and the building began to shake. "Time to go," Marcus yelled, his voice strained. He was limping, but he was still standing. They ran back to the exit, their hearts pounding as the facility crumbled behind them. They had done it. They had destroyed the source of the virus. But Nadia knew that this was just the beginning. The aliens would not stop. The war was far from over. And now, humanity had a chance to fight back. The Earth had fallen. Alien invaders had swept across the planet, obliterating cities and silencing any resistance. Humanity's last strongholds had been crushed, and the few survivors were forced to hide, scavenging whatever they could to survive. The world, once a symbol of strength and progress, was now a shattered memory. Among the survivors was Captain Jack Thorne, a man who had lost everything. His family, his comrades, and his honor were taken from him in one brutal attack. He had been part of the military's final defense, but even the greatest forces couldn't stand against the alien onslaught. Now, he lived in the shadows, struggling to find meaning in a world that had given up hope. But there was a whisper in the wind, a rumor that something had survived, something powerful enough to fight back. The Phoenix Project, a secret initiative launched long before the alien invasion, hidden deep within the remnants of Earth's old government facilities. If the Phoenix Project still existed, it could be humanity's last hope. Jack stood in the ruins of an abandoned city, his breath coming out in sharp bursts. His face was grim, his eyes hard as stone. He had heard the same rumors, and they filled him with a mixture of hope and doubt. He knew that if the Phoenix Project was real, it was his only chance to change the tide of the war. But it was not going to be easy. "We have to move fast," Jack said, his voice low and filled with urgency. He turned to his team, a small but determined group of rebels who joined him in the search for the Phoenix. "The aliens know we're here. We don't have much time." His team nodded, each of them battle-worn but ready for what lay ahead. They had nothing left to lose. The alien forces had taken everything from them, and now all they wanted was a chance to fight back. They began their trek through the desolate landscape, avoiding alien patrols as they made their way to the location of the Phoenix Project. Jack's mind raced. He couldn't afford to let his guard down. Every step, every decision could be the difference between life and death. As they neared their destination, Jack could feel the weight of the mission on his shoulders. This was it. The fate of humanity rested on the success of this mission. If the Phoenix Project was a myth, there would be no hope left. No chance to rebuild. The group arrived at a hidden underground facility, concealed beneath the ruins of an old government building. The entrance was heavily guarded by alien drones, and the air was thick with tension. Jack signaled for his team to hold back. "We can't go in through the front," Jack whispered. "We'll find another way in." They moved to the back of the facility, where Jack noticed a small ventilation shaft leading into the building. It wasn't much, but it was their only chance. "Get ready," Jack muttered, pulling off his jacket to reveal a small toolkit. He quickly began working on the grate covering the vent. Time was running out, and every second felt like a lifetime. They couldn't afford to be detected. With a final twist of his wrench, the grate fell away, revealing the dark tunnel below. Jack motioned for the team to follow him, and one by one, they descended into the shadows. The air inside was cold and stale, the silence almost deafening. Jack led the way, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the silence became. It felt as if the building was alive, watching their every move. They reached the heart of the facility, a massive underground lab filled with advanced technology. Jack's eyes scanned the room, searching for any sign of the Phoenix Project. It had to be here. He could feel it. Then, his eyes landed on a large chamber at the far end of the room. It was sealed, locked tight. This was it. The Phoenix Project had to be inside. As Jack approached the chamber, a loud alarm suddenly blared, echoing through the facility. His heart skipped a beat. "Move!" Jack shouted. The team rushed to the chamber's door, but it refused to open. They were trapped. "I can't get it open!" One of his teammates cried, desperately working on the control panel. "The security system is too advanced. We don't have time for this." Jack growled. "Find a way." Just as Jack's frustration reached its peak, a loud crash echoed through the room. The door began to slide open, and a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, dressed in sleek, dark armor, stood before them. Her eyes glowed with a strange, unnatural light. She was unlike anyone Jack had ever seen human, but not quite. Something had changed in her. She looked powerful. And so must humanity. Jack stared at her, disbelief flooding his mind. This was the Phoenix Project. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a machine. It was her. Who are you? Jack asked, his voice filled with awe. I am Phoenix, she said simply. I was created to be the key to humanity's survival. I am the weapon, and I am the cure. The room seemed to pulse with energy as Phoenix raised her hand. Her powers were unlike anything Jack had ever witnessed. An energy field enveloped her body, glowing with a bright, fiery light. Get to the surface, she commanded. I will hold them off. With that, the team rushed to the surface, the sound of alien drones closing in behind them. Phoenix stood her ground, a fierce energy building around her as she prepared to face the invaders head-on. She was the weapon that could turn the tide of the war. As Jack and his team emerged from the facility, they saw the sky above them light up with explosions. Phoenix was fighting, and humanity's last hope was alive. The Phoenix had risen, and the war was far from over.